Hello. We are live, heating and air, entertainment coming at you. Big announcement tonight. We're going to wait a little bit later in the show to make our big announcement, but looks like a couple of you guys are already on with us. So, hey to Gary. Gary's been with us a few times now. And hello to Arch. Good to see you guys. And looks like a guy named Scott had waved at us on our show this morning. So he was really early for tonight's live show. But anyway, our show is mostly about heating and air. Every now and then we sprinkle a little bit of other stuff in there, but mostly about heating and air conditioning questions. We take your questions live. Feel free to drop those in the chat. And if I can't answer it, I'm usually honest about that. But we sometimes will have some other pros on here that can help answer questions as well. So hey to Ryan and hey to Carl. Good to see you guys as well. And we've got a few regulars that hop on with us every week. So I really appreciate you guys supporting us and joining us every week. So every week we've been doing this for a couple months now. And we've been live every week, Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Hi, Josh. Looks like the name, I'm sorry, I'm going to probably butcher this, but Sheer. I'm going to say Sheer. Let me know if I'm saying your name wrong, but hey to you. And yeah, so if any of you guys have any questions, heat and air questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. I wanted to start out tonight. Let's see if I can roll back up here. One of the news publications, heating and air related, that I follow regularly is achrnews.com. And I'll sometimes reference their stuff in some of our videos, but thought I'd start out tonight talking about, they did an article this past magazine where they said that Hardy members report April sales dip. And I'm curious if you have a hypothesis on why you think that is. I'm going to read this article and why they think that is. I think that weather probably does play a role, right? I mean, if it's a milder April than say last April was, maybe, but I think there's a few other things at play here. And I'll touch on that in just a moment. But again, if you have any heating and air questions, feel free to drop those in the chat while I roll through this article. It says sales by HVACR distributors participating in the Heating, Air Conditioning, and Refrigeration Distributors International Trends Report declined by 4% during April 2023, according to Hardy. Sales growth for the previous 12 months through April was 12%, Hardy reported. This looks like a soft start to the first month of the cooling season, but that is a bit misleading, said Brian Loftus, Hardy's macroeconomic and residential market analyst, in a press release. Besides being compared to a very busy prior year, April 2023 had one less billing day than last year, which is interesting. So I guess that does play a role. We estimate Sales for the month would have increased by nearly 1% with the same number of billing days. I guess I had not considered the billing days of the month, but I'm going to go into this again why I think it is in just this moment. The days the days sales outstanding, a measure of how quickly customers pay their bills, was at 40 days in April. The DSO this month is similar to the other post-COVID Aprils and much faster than pre-COVID pace, said Loftus. We have been expecting the DSO to increase towards the pre-COVID levels, excuse me, but that is not happening yet. So anyway, this goes on. Oh, my camera just fell out, guys. I don't know if you can still hear me, but I might have to do a restart here to get this camera working again. So don't go nowhere. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to yeah, I'm gonna have to probably do a restart here. Don't go anywhere. I'm gonna have to restart this, guys. I'm so sorry. All right, guys. Man, technology is a lovely thing sometimes. So sorry about that. Try to catch back here. Uh, yeah, so I'll wrap up that article real quick and just say that I do think that weather does play a role. I think probably what he was saying, he's smarter than I am. He's probably right. But I was going to say that some of the price increases we've seen over the last 24 months might have played a role in that as well. And I do think that there is a chance that we are on a little bit of a bubble. I do think that there's also homeowners out there that are rising up and saying, "Hey, if we've got new refrigerants coming, maybe I'll see what I can do to limp along and try to um, get by for now." So anyway, yeah. So let me. Ryan says I did some homework and prepared a few questions. That's great. So yeah, again, if you have any air questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. But yeah, what a way to start our show tonight, especially with the big announcement. Hopefully, you guys think it's as big as I do. I think it's pretty big for our little YouTube channel that we're going to be doing some big things here soon. So Ryan says, do you do a manual S calculation? I hear about the manual J, but not manual S. We currently are we don't do a lot of it. I have been required to do it a couple times by local entities or to do something similar to a manual S when selecting the equipment and so on. But it just depends on the situation. I do think it's a good thing. I'm glad they came out with it and it's becoming more of a standard, but it is still pretty uncommon, to be completely honest with you. Do I think it's a good thing? Yes. But do I see a lot of heating and air guys doing it? No, I do not currently. So if you want me to be honest. Um, Carl says, so far our weather has been mild here in North Arizona, which is crazy to me. I always think of Arizona having extreme temperatures, but I guess you're up in the northern part of Arizona, and I guess there's different areas and different temperatures, right? Ryan says prices are the reason. I've gotten quotes in March and they were crazy from 15K to 32K replacement, crazy expensive in Charlotte. That does sound really high compared to some of the other folks that I help on our website, New HVAC Guide. I've actually heard that before, that Charlotte and a few other places in North Carolina seem to be right up there with New York and some of those big cities out west. Um, let's see. Arch says I decided on a 16 SEER 3.5 ton Ream Rude package heat pump to replace our Temp Star. Nice. I remember you talking about that. Um, I'm having a hard time finding someone to install one. Um, gotcha. So Arch, so you have decided on the brand, but you haven't decided on the contractor. You might want to do it the other way around. You may want to find a really good contractor and then maybe go with the brand they recommend. Just a thought. Um, but let me know how that works out. I know you join us for each week, and keep us updated on that. Mark, that looks like a new name to us. So welcome to Mark. What brand of dual run capacitors do you use, and are they American made? Um, I get American made when I can. Sometimes our suppliers I can't. So I'm not really brand loyal on capacitors, to be completely honest with you. Um, if I get a brand that we're having issues with, which has happened, it happened years ago, there was one particular brand that we were avoiding for at least for a while. Um, but honestly, I have a gal in our office that she'll shop around to our local suppliers when we do bulk orders on certain things. We're not a real big company, so we'll usually, try to get little bulk orders here and there, shop around and make sure we're pricing we can, just from a business standpoint. Hey, Bruce, good to see you. Bruce has joined us before. Gary says, hanging out with Josh and friends, no matter what crashes on his broadcast. Yeah, it's I was thinking as I was getting everything rebooted back up, I was like, I've been promoting this big announcement, and of all weeks, that's the week that we have an issue again. Um, let's see. Arch says, I have a half dozen quotes from different HVAC installers who all quoted us 13.4 to 14 SEER RTUs. Is there a problem finding higher SEER package heat pumps, or is there a less profit versus lower SEER RTU? So, Arch, as I understand it, especially in the residential side of things, a lot of the big manufacturers, they're not really looking to, it's such a small market share compared to a lot of other markets. And so they, they provide a unit, they provide enough of a unit so that they have an option, but they don't have a lot of options, if that makes sense. And I've been told that by a few of the large manufacturers. Um, so I don't know if that, changes things too much for you, but I think most brands offer at least what you described, a 13.4 SEER 2, but there are going to be a few of them that might offer up towards 15 to 16. And of course, Bosch has that unit that's like 18 or 19. Um, Bruce says, "What time is the live chat?" Yeah, we got started actually, I think about 30 seconds early tonight, and then everything crashed. My computer went blank, and I had to get everything restarted. So, Arch says Daikin is an alternative to Ream. Doesn't make a 3.5 ton, 15.2 SEER package unit. Is it better to go with 3 ton over ton? I read that many heat pumps installed in homes are oversized. Yeah, Arch, I would say as far as that goes, I would definitely wanna get the properly sized unit, and if you have to go, if the brand you want or the contractor you go with doesn't have the 3.5 ton, then there's probably a reason for that. So some of these brands might sell instead of a 3.5, a 3, 3.5, and then 4, they may only sell 4, but you can program it or set the airflow to be a 3.5. So Carl says, I saw where Mikey Pipes put an R32. That is true. Um, in fact, Mikey commented on our channel and shared that video, I think, before it even went live on his channel. But I could be wrong on that. He might have just been sharing the video. Um, but yeah, as soon as we're allowed to get them here in Virginia, we're gonna get them. He's in one of the states that's approved the A2L refrigerants, and I am not. So Art says, hopefully prices are going down. A friend who knows people in construction said that many subcontractors are fishing up construction jobs, but that they are expecting a lull in new construction here. I have not heard that, but I believe you. We definitely have seen we've seen the real estate market cool a little. This time last year, it was quite hot. The inventory was flying off the shelf from when it came to real estate. So that may play a role in this new construction as well. Jay says, is Goodman bad equipment? Depends on who you ask, Jay. If you ask me, I say no. I've installed a lot of Goodmans over the years, and a lot of the reputation, in my opinion, that Goodman gets is typically because of how accessible their equipment is. You can be an unlicensed contractor in some cases and get your hands on a Goodman. That's the case with all brands. Um, I think if you spent the right amount of money and tried hard enough, you might be able to. But with Goodman, they've just made their equipment super accessible, and because of that, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can get their hands on them. And because of that, they're installed a lot of times, and instead of it looking bad on the installer, it unfortunately looks bad on the brand. But I've probably installed almost as many Goodmans as some of the other brands that we've installed, and very few callbacks. If they're installed correctly, in my opinion, they're they work just as good as anybody. Arch says, we had a mild May, unfortunately, because we have no AC. Northern Arizona is much cooler than down here. They've only quoted 13.4 SEER. Most don't seem to want to be bothered with questions and customer preferences. I picked Ream Rude because it's the most brand installed around here. Gotcha. That's a good reason to pick it. Um, but yeah, hopefully you can find that good contractor and then, like I say, go with the brand that they recommend. Ryan says, "What do you think of air ionization? When is it better to use instead of high MERV filters? Low static pressure. I also heard not to use anything that changed the chemistry of your air due to ozone, etc." Yeah, the ionizers that we install do not create ozone. Ozone is something that a lot of folks are um, sensitive to, and so uh, I like ionizers. I've seen them do some pretty cool things. You can just Google it. Some of the ionizers on the market. Um, Now, in contrast, they don't do what a filter does, right? A filter fil filters the air. So, when you talk about some of these air cleaners and ionizers and things like that, they're more of looking at it like they're not removing anything from the air, but they're cleaning the air in one way, shape, or form, depending on what they do, whether it's a UV light or ionizer or whatever it is exactly it's doing. Um, but where filters are going to remove things from the air, particulates from the air. Sorry, guys, I'm still getting over a cold. Um, but you know, static pressure might play a role in that. You mentioned that. If you have a filter, and you're concerned about static pressure, and you don't want to, you know, affect that for one reason or another. Looking at an ionizer might be a reason that you avoid that static drop with a high MERV filter. But I think they both serve their own purpose. I think they both do two different things. And I know guys out there that will fight you over a high MERV filter and say you shouldn't install them because of static pressures. And there are just as many guys that'll fight you over ionizers and some of the air cleaners on the market, saying that you should avoid those for one reason or another. So you know, I I don't know that I have the know-how or a dog in the race. I understand static pressures and things like that, but I don't claim to know things. I'm not a scientist. But again, I have installed ionizers and heard good things from folks. I'm honestly, my non-negotiable, my go-to when it comes to IAQ is UV lights. That's usually the one that I'll have folks start with for one reason. What the situation is, right? If they have breathing issues, or if the unit has a particular problem that I'm trying to remedy. But I do think that UV lights are the bare minimum. I personally think that every single heating and air system, and I'm not getting paid to say this, I don't have a sponsor when it comes to UV lights or any air cleaners, but I personally think that every single heating and air system in the country, in the world, should have some sort of UV light. But I don't understand guys that argue against that. I've seen them do too many good things, and the pros far outweigh the cons. I can't think of too many cons other than, uh, in the old days, the UV light would maybe make the plastic components in the air handlers more brittle, but, these days they account for that. So, I think those days are behind us, and I think that, or at least mostly behind us. Um, and that's my non-negotiable. If I got on my soapbox there for a moment. Arch says it wasn't my first choice. Wasn't okay, my first choice, but have read it's easier to repair and parts are readily available. I would agree with that. Um, Overall, I would agree with that, even in my area. So, and you're not in my area, so if you're hearing that, I would agree with that. Ryan says ceiling cassettes versus wall mount versus floor. Is there a difference in maintenance for either style? The wall mounted and floor models seem more homeowner friendly to clean filters and such. Yeah, I would say from a homeowner standpoint, um, the floor unit's probably gonna be the easiest, right? You're gonna be able to reach that filter probably easier. If I got an older customer, that's something that I might consider, um, having that, when it comes to a maintenance standpoint. But I would say from a maintenance standpoint for us, for professionals, they make kits for the wall units. You can literally hang this bag off of it and really clean those units well, um, in comparison, you know, so they all have their, uh, I guess, but, um, from the standpoint of what you're describing, I would lean for model when it comes to maintenance for the homeowner. They're gonna be able to reach that filter on that easier than any of them, right? Cheers says, "Trying to decide on an air scrubber, what do you recommend? How about the Remy Halo versus the Remy Halo LED?" So, I personally at Griffin Air, we don't sell either one of those products, simply, honestly, because they're all really pricey. A lot of the air scrubber, the Air Night, the Remy Halo, a lot of those products, I think they're great. The APCO, um, a lot of those air cleaners that can run, you know, anywhere from, I mean, installed, there are companies that charge over $1,000 for some of those products to install them. Um, I can do I can do an iWave, an ionizer and a UV light for less money in some cases, and in my opinion, get more bang for my buck, because if I'm getting a standard UV light shining on that UV coil, I mean, on that, evaporator coil, I might be getting more bang for my buck there. So at Griffin Air, that's usually what we do, but, when it comes to those products, honestly, they're all, in a lot of cases, doing the same thing. Um, they might do one might do a little better than another, but they're all, in that air in one way, shape, or form. So, um, yeah. Jay says, "Thank you. I agree 100%. That's certainly what happened." Nice. Ryan says, "I'm a little frugal. I'm interested in what temperatures people set their homes to in the cooling and heating seasons and where they live. I'm in North Carolina and set my heat to 64, 66, and AC to 76 to 78." Wow, you are frugal, and tough. Um, I'll be honest with you. In the summertime, we set our house at 70, and in the wintertime, we set our house at 69. That's where we set our house, and I'll be curious if anyone else answers your question on what they keep their house set to. So, Ryan's looking for a little feedback from the rest of you guys. What do you keep your temperature set at typically? Um, let's see, how we doing? A little behind here. We're gonna make our big announcement in just a moment, that I told you guys we're gonna make. Arch says, "I found a 16 SEER Rude package unit from a supplier, but they can't sell to me. I want a licensed installer to be eligible for the 10-year warranty. Otherwise, I'd hire a semi-retired HVAC tech to do it." Yeah, I would recommend finding a good company that's gonna take care of you long term, just my 2 cents. Jay says it's all about the install. Yes, sir, I agree. Randy, welcome to our show. My HVAC system air vents are on my floor, so would running a ceiling fan so it draws the air towards the ceiling instead of blowing it towards the floor, would it help my AC work better? I think circulation of air in general is a good thing. I just was listening to a guy the other day talking about excuse me, guys. He was talking about, how ceiling fans are a part of your HVAC system, was kind of his point. He was doing it in a roundabout way, but that was his point. And, I think circulation of air in general, when we lay out ductwork, a lot of times we're looking at, what we call stale air, so pockets of air. And so the hope and dream is when you lay out your ductwork, install your returns and your supplies, you want these loops of air that almost kinda what we call scrub the walls or scrub different parts of the home to remove that stale air. There's literally pockets of air that doesn't move, and anything you can do to make more air circulation is going to add for better comfort typically. Um, so yeah, especially we have customers with high ceilings and just turning on their ceiling fans will actually reduce their electric bill because they're circulating the air better. It'll cool that space in there, and then they don't have these stale pockets of warm air that all of a sudden draft through and make the system run longer and such. So it's better, more comfort, and also can affect your utility bills, believe it or not. Art says, I've read the same thing about Goodman. Ryan says, have you installed the new Daikin One Touch yet? I see that Amanda's version is the same thermostat is being sold and installed. Yes, we've installed a few of them, and I love them. We haven't completely. We'll usually do the Daikin One Plus because of some of the accessories, and the Daikin One Plus can be paired with a few other options like ductless units, which we install them with ductless units a lot, but you do have that capability. But they also have an extra set of dry contacts. So, um, unless the customer has a preference, I'll usually do the Daikin One Plus. But we have done the Daikin One Touch, and if they're getting no accessories, like if they're doing a fit and they're doing the Daikin One, no accessories with a fit, I'll the Daikin One Touch, no doubt. I think it's a good looking thermostat too. Randy says I set mine to 74 in the heat and 76 in cool. So Randy likes a warm house. Ugh, I'm a chubby guy, so I need it cooler than that. My best friend, he keeps his house real warm, and I sweat like a bull when I go over there. So I'm going to answer this one last question here, and then we're going to make our big announcement for you guys, and I'm excited to make it. So Art says, I believe you mentioned adjusting the 4-ton unit for the size of the house. Is this adjusting the static pressure? If so, can you briefly explain what is static pressure and how to adjust it? So static pressure is basically the restriction of the ductwork, right? So there's probably a better definition of that, but that's the best way I can explain it. So if I were to blow a certain amount of air, so if I have a fan that's going to blow 1,000 CFMs, and I blow it through a let's say a 12-inch round pipe, okay, and I'm going to have a certain amount of restriction on that, a certain amount of um, you know of it holding back that air, if you will. So it's pushing this air, and you've got this pressure, okay. If you were to reduce that pipe size to say 10 inches, the static pressure would go up. There's more pressure there, is the idea. And so a lot of times when heating and air guys are setting things, they will adjust airflow. They won't necessarily adjust the static pressure, but they will measure the static pressure to decide, hey, am I sized right? Do I have a problem here? Do I have a static drop across a filter or something else holding me back? So that's kind of a nutshell on what that would mean. And so when you do, say, a 4-ton system in place of a 3.5, you're going to adjust the airflow because your ductwork is sized for 3.5 tons. Otherwise, your static pressure is going to be too high. And you can have issues with things like the evaporator coil freezing up or whatever if you're not getting the proper amount of airflow. It can do a lot of different things, but that's kind of the gist of it. When we're talking about static pressure, I could probably keep you on here all night talking about the ins and outs of that, and why we watch that and such. But we have certain targets that we like to hit for static pressures on the return side and the supply side. And there's a number of reasons for that. One of those being comfort and performance of the system, but the other one is noise. If you get a system that has high static pressures, it's going to be noisy. You're going to hear that return grill kind of whistle a little bit, you know? So that's kind of a nutshell. So, guys, let me take a moment and make my big announcement. I'm excited. I meant to make this announcement last week, but this is our big announcement. Um, I have the honor, I've been invited by the largest, one of the largest manufacturers in the world, which is Daikin. You guys have heard me talk about Daikin before. That's the brand we sell at Griffin Air, and they are going to give us behind closed doors access to their factory. We're going to go down to Houston, Texas next month. We're going to record some videos. We're going to go behind the scenes a little bit. We're going to sit down with some of the executives and maybe kind of ask them some questions. And, you know, it's just, it's going to be, kind of a cool experience. I'm going to make the best of it. And we're going to make as many videos while we're there as well. Videos that, I'm hoping will help you guys. So we're going to vlog the experience, but we're also, again, we're going to make the best of it. We're going to try to show you guys some things that maybe you wouldn't see elsewhere, and really go behind closed doors, if you will. I've been chatting with them about that trip that's coming up. It's going to be halfway through July, I believe. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but it's going to be, somewhere in the middle of July. We're going to head down, and you know, I'm excited. It's what I've been talking about doing, for you guys more than anything, being able to show homeowners some of the things they don't get to see elsewhere, some of the things that, you know, they don't get to they don't get access to. Sometimes they're just buying a product from a heat and air guy standing in their home. And I'm hoping this will give us the ability to maybe show a little more than that. So that's kind of the big announcement. I've been excited to share with you guys. I knew about it last week. I just simply got wrapped up in our show and forgot to share it. But yeah, I've been having a few chats with them about that, and it's going to happen. So um, stay tuned for more of that. We're going to probably do a whole series of videos, a whole playlist on our YouTube channel of just that trip, things that we're going to show, behind closed doors, if you will, and I'm going to sit down with some of their executives and folks that make the decisions there, and ask some questions. So I'm looking forward to that. If you can't tell, and that's the big announcement that I've been hanging on to, if you will, and telling you guys about. So anyway, pretty cool. Back to our chat here. Ryan says, I wish U.S. manufacturers combined HVAC systems and water heating like everywhere else. It would be great to have one system with both. I know SpacePack does, but it has hydronics, which isn't as popular. Yeah, I mean, I know that that's a bigger deal over in Europe, especially. But there are certain parts of the U.S., especially the northern parts, that I think it would make sense. But then there's certain parts of the U.S. that it just simply wouldn't. But I think you're right. I think that there's definitely a place for it here, and I'm surprised we don't see more of it for sure. Ryan says the 5-inch carbon filter I put in my system 3 weeks ago seems to be working for eliminating odors. I'm still not quite 100% on that yet, as I don't run my system as much as others to see more results. Nice. Feel free to drop a link to that product if you want, Ryan. Carl says I set my heat to 67 to 68 and cooling to 77. Wow, you guys are way tougher than I am. In a warm house there. Ryan says I need to do more testing. Ryan also says, have you installed the new Daikin One Touch yet? Yes. Yeah, I already answered that. Thomas says, do you service the Philadelphia area? Thomas, I do not. I have been to Philadelphia, but I'm in Virginia. I used to work for a company that was based in Philadelphia, and so I went up there for a couple of classes one time. Um, it was interesting. Philadelphia is an interesting city. A lot of historical stuff there for sure. Kendall. I think I've seen you on our show before, so welcome back. Trying to decide between a 15 SEER Bosch system or a 20 SEER split system. Just wondering if the 20 SEER is worth the extra money. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on how much you use the system. Um, it is going to have that variable speed air handler. Maybe that might be something to think about. I don't know what your cost difference is there, but you know, it's definitely a decision to be made, and I can't make it for you. But if you feel like you're home a lot and you run your system and you keep it at a reasonable temperature, unlike some of these other guys that seem to keep their house pretty warm, um, I think that you you will see a savings. But is it worth it? I can't answer that for you. Ryan says, when would you use a low static versus high static ducted indoor unit? The only real time that I mess with high static stuff is we do have a few customers that have the small duct high velocity units where they intentionally make they have these really small ducts with high forced air. Um, and so we mess with high static stuff when it comes to that. Um, and then the other instance that I can think of off the top of my head is mobile homes have those electric furnaces that are meant for high static. So a couple of you guys saying congrats, which is awesome. Yeah, I'm excited about that trip coming up. Um, this whole YouTube thing started out as kind of a hobby, and now it's kind of turned into something that maybe we can actually get behind a closed door or two, right? And show you guys some cool stuff. Um, Ryan says hopefully you get some record some content. Yep, we plan to. We're going to be taking all of our camera stuff down, taking some GoPros, taking some of our other cameras, and recording the whole deal. They know why we're coming and what we're going to be doing. They invited us. I've been bugging them, and they invited us, so that's great. Maybe you could take a look at the Daikin Goodman package units. Yep. Ryan says, glad you are being recognized. You are a big advocate and supporter for their systems. Yeah, I mean, I've been drinking the Kool-Aid for a little while, right? So Gary says, biggest congrats, Josh, on your visit. Looking forward to future videos on experience. Yep. Mm, We've already got a few videos that we're planning on recording. Maybe we'll share that on an upcoming live show, some of the videos that we plan to record while we're there. So yeah. Eric says, is there a determining factor on whether a new two-story build has one larger or two smaller systems? If it's a two-story, Eric, um, I think I would say most pros would agree that two separate systems is ideal. Um, But if you have to do one single system for one reason or another, then obviously you're going to want it to be zoned. And we've done a bunch of videos on zoning, things to consider when you're zoning a system. Um, I think these days with how far we've come with zoning and the capabilities of communicating inverter systems, I would say that you probably want to go that route. You want to do a communicating inverter system with that zoning because it has the ability to ramp up and down and account for times when a smaller zone is calling. Whereas if you have in the old days, we'd have these big, giant single stage systems, like a 4 or 5 ton system, and then you were trying to blow all this air. We're talking about static pressures a minute ago. You're trying to blow all this air through this tiny little hole, if you will. Just that one little zone is calling, and you're blowing all that air. So we've had to account for that. We've had things like bypass dampers and temperature sensors and things that would have to account for that. But I think from a comfort standpoint and from a performance standpoint, most pros would probably agree uh, there may be exceptions to this in certain parts of the country, but for the most part, I think we would all agree that you're going to get more comfort out of two separate systems. You might pay a little more, but you're going to get better comfort if you have two separate systems. At least here in Virginia, that's how we do it a lot. We'll do one system on the first floor with the ductwork in the crawl space or basement, and then we'll do on the second story. We'll do you know all the ductwork in the attic and have your two separate systems that way. So sometimes it's a matter of just physically getting a duct from that first floor to the second floor. Sometimes that's part of the decision. If it just you don't have a certain part of the house where it just simply makes sense to run that duct, then you might do two separate systems for that reason alone. So just something to think about there. Um, Eric says thanks. Thank you, pal. So, yeah, if you have a heating and air question, feel free to drop that. It looks like I finally caught up here, and we've got a little bit of time left for our show. In the meantime, let's break away for a segment that we have been doing the last few weeks on inventions not invented yet. And you're welcome to steal these inventions. We talked about one week of doing your geothermal loops, burying them when the foundation is dug. We talked about Bluetooth thermostats, wireless thermostats that would just, no wires at all. That would just by Bluetooth connect to the heating and air system. And this week, the where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? Hold on. I had a really cool one that I was going to say for this week, and now I'm not seeing it. Bear with me. I'm reading through. I made a list of them, so bear with me. Okay. Uh, Here we go. Okay. So this week, our hypothetical. So have you guys seen? Let me see if I can share my computer here. Have you guys seen the recessed um, mini splits that some of the brands are making now? Daikin does not have one yet, but I'm sure they will eventually. Recessed mini splits. And I'm not talking about the cassette ones, not the big ones. I'm talking about the little ones. So here's one right here. Share this tab. Here we go. There we go. So these right here. Have you guys seen? There's a few different brands that are making them, including the brand we will not mention because they attacked me once. But they kind of look like that, and they kind of recess up at the ceiling. And unlike a ceiling cassette, so like a ceiling cassette would be more like this. Unlike these recess units that we're talking about, like this one, um, they between the joists. So that's really the advantage of these in comparison to the cassette units. So they basically look like a wall hung unit that are recessed in the ceiling. So my hypothetical invention that I was going to throw out there is having one of these type of units, but having the entire unit in the wall and on the backside of that wall. So have it on an exterior wall, and on the backside of that wall, it would look like it would look like just a fan. So you would see, so you see this side discharge unit here. All you would see is just this fan grill right here, just like a PTAC. You know those PTAC units you see in hotels, and instead of having this entire unit sitting out there, it would all be in the wall, and all you would see is this little grill here with a fan. And so I don't know what we would call it, but that's my hypothetical invention for this week. Um, let me know what you think of my hypothetical invention. I think if it was installed properly, if it's the right kind of unit, you would have you'd have your joists that are your exterior joists that are these days 2x6 on a lot of homes, and you would have them on 16-inch centers, and you would be able to hypothetically fit this outdoor unit and have something like these recessed units that I was showing you a minute ago in the wall. So something that would look like this, but it would, fit in between the joists. Let me let me know what you think of my hypothetical invention. That's my hypothetical invention for this week. Um, I thought I would throw that out there. See what you guys think of that. Okay, back to our chat here. Looks like I got a little behind here. Reliable. What's up, Adrian? Good to see you. Oh, here we go. Ryan says, why do 80% furnaces have louver doors on them versus the flat solid doors on 90% furnaces? Just something I noticed. Um, I think there's a couple reasons for that. The main reason is in the old days, 80% furnaces, they didn't worry about so much when they didn't worry so much about the air intake, where it would pull the return air in. I'm drawing a blank on what that verbiage is, but basically for the combustion, would need that air, they would have to open grates there. Whereas the 90% furnaces, they do want you pulling in fresh air for that. It's a condensing furnace, and you're going to pull that air hypothetically from outside uh, to pull in there. And so they want that cover on that door to be airtight. Um, but I've seen 80% furnaces that have the solid closed doors as well, especially these days. So yeah. Arch says our house was built in the early 70s and is just under 1,500 square feet and is not furred out and has large sliding windows. I I thinking this might be why a 3.5 ton instead of a 3 ton was installed. Yeah, it's very possible. You know, when they did their heat load calculation, they have to account for, if they did one, first of all, they have to account for, the lack of insulation as well. None of the contractors did a manual J. You might want to get one, just in case, might be worth it. You might save some money after you get it done properly. Even if you have to pay for it, you might want to get that done. Carl says, would a VRF system be more feasible for 2 stories? We have installed the Daikin VRV Life in a few houses, and people love them. But it just depends on the scenario. We had a system years ago, well, about a year ago, we were going to do a VRV Life, and I think we ended up just doing 2 conventional systems eventually. But we were looking at doing mini splits upstairs, so we were going to do how that VRV Life can be paired with a gas furnace as well on the first floor. But it just depends. Every house is different. Buckeye, I think that's the first time I've seen your name on our channel, so welcome. In my neighborhood, there were 3 of us. All of us are in our mid-60s anyway. We all 3 went with Goodman, furnace and AC units. The guy across the street went with the Lennox and mocked us. Oh, yeah, those Lennox guys, they'll mock you. They'll make fun of you. Got their nose in the air. Those Lennox guys never mock some of the other brands though, because if they do, they're crazy in my opinion. But we'll get off of that. I personally, this is just me. I don't these guys that think Linux is part of the big 3. I don't think they are. Now sales may not reflect that, but I don't see it. I think Linux is maybe a nice read or Rude or York, and shots fired. I'll just say it. I don't see what they're bringing to the table. I think that Carrier guys could probably name some things that they bring to the table that no one else does. I think Train can do that, Train and American Standard, and I think Daikin can do that, Daikin and Amana. I don't see what Lennox does. I don't see what they but that's just me, my personal preference. You like Ford, I like Chevrolet. That's just me. Ryan says a thing called ceiling cassettes. Yeah, uh, they I, the units. I think everybody has their own verbiage, but when people say mini split cassettes, ceiling cassettes, they're usually talking about the bigger units, those 4 foot units in the ceiling. Whereas the units that I was talking about a moment ago, most of the guys I talk to are call them recessed mini splits. So it's just a verbiage thing. Um, and yeah, Arch says a manufacturer representative said that we might need a 4 ton to replace our 3.5 R22 package unit. Is there a heating cooling efficiency difference between 3.5 R22 and a 3.5? Um, Efficiency maybe a little bit, nothing you're going to notice, but a capacity difference, no. You're not getting a 3.5 ton system, regardless of the refrigerant, is going to be a 3.5 ton system. Hey, Emery, good to see you. Carl says the limiting factor probably would be the spacing of the wall studs. That is very true. But maybe do 2 fans instead of that big fan that we're used to seeing on side discharge units. Do some small fans with that recoil. I don't know. You know, I I'm going to argue this one. I think it's doable. So Emery says we can't hear you. Does anybody else agree with Emery? Anybody else having trouble hearing this beautiful voice of mine? Please let me know in the comment section. Gary says, I like your idea, Josh, but the outdoor unit in the exterior wall could be a serviceman's horror show. I agree to an extent, but they've got these wall hung Renai units now. They've got the wall hung Renai water heaters. They've also got the other. I worked on one of them about a year and a half ago. Renai makes this unit where it also does the refrigerant and stuff too, if I remember correctly. Um, but we've seen these Tesla units too, where they're I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool to see. I think it'd be possible. I think that the real thing against my little invention would be the fact that you're going to remove basically this cavity of where insulation would be. So they would have to account for that, I think. And maybe it would bump out a little bit from the exterior wall. I don't know. Ryan says, I like that. I'd be worried that it's not sealed properly through the bugs crawling. That's true. Know, um, you'd have to definitely have to worry about that. Are there any old school GE units in your area? I had one of the GE units when I first started Griffin Air years ago. I think it was built in 1968 or something. I don't know how long it had been sitting there and not working, but I remember taking pictures of that thing thinking, man, this thing is old. We're going to be wrapping up here soon, guys. So definitely get your questions in. Ryan says, why do you think the VRV Life doesn't have as long of a warranty as Daikin's other high quality products? I thought the VRV Life did come with a 12-year. You might be talking about the Sky Air. VRV Life warranty. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me see. Yeah, the VRV Life comes with a 12. Now maybe if you install it in a commercial location, maybe that changes, but the VRV Life does come with a 12-year warranty. So you might be talking about the Sky Air, and I think the Sky Air can be more towards the commercial stuff, and maybe that's why they don't get quite a long of a warranty. Never liked Lennox. Parts were pricey. Carl says, Arch says, I wonder why ICP uses metal hardware cloth like mesh to protect the coils instead of louver panels. We get hail at least a couple times a year, and that's why I won't go with an ICP day and night. Yeah, I mean, I think that I think Carrier and ICP and all of those with those exposed coils, they want you, if you want a better system, to buy their higher end systems. So they offer their builder grade, and then they offer that. I mean, that is their builder grade, but then you can get the what you're describing, louver type outdoor casing in their higher end systems. Ryan says, "Yikes! I have a Linux. I'm hurting here. LOL. It's I got when I bought the house. At least it was the top of the line series of Linux. Linux claimed the fame as their 26th year to unitary AC. Yeah, I mean there are guys out there that love Linux. So don't I'm not the end all on this. There's just as many guys out there that'll bash the brands that I love, and I think God made us all different, right? It's one of my employees just loves Ford, and then I've got another employee that just loves Chevrolet, and I could just sit back and listen to those guys go at it. And I think heating and air is the same way. So we all have our preferences. Arch says, I'll have to see if anyone around here can do a manual J calculation. I'm sure somebody can. Um, Carl says, cool, an argument. Let's see. Ken, I think it's the first time I've seen your name, so welcome. Are dual heat pumps with that also utilize the furnace in cold weather worth the extra money in the Northeast, and decide if the energy savings are worth the extra upfront money and more possible issues? I can't speak for where you're located, Ken. I can tell you that where I'm located, one determining factor that will sometimes play a role in this is what type of gas are you burning. So if you're burning natural gas, for the longest time historically, natural gas has been, you know, uh, a bargain in comparison to other means of heating your home. A lot of those customers will just burn the gas; they don't care. Um, where I see customers have, say, LP gas, and sometimes even oil. Oil is when they might definitely look at a dual fuel system and doing a heat pump, so that the way that at least the heat pump is running on mild days and they're not burning gas. Um, and they'll still have the LP gas furnace there to run on those cold days. But the hope and dream when the gas is more expensive is to save that gas, right? Art says, you mentioned York. I got quoted a 3.5 ton York package unit, but didn't even consider because of all the negative comments I've read on HVAC forums. I I am not a fan of York, but some guys are. I know a guy that loves York, and he's been selling them for a number of years. He's seen probably the ups and downs. Um, so I part of my issue with York, where I'm located, is there's no good suppliers either. So it's hard for me to love a brand if I can't even get parts for it, right? And we'll usually have to do some hunting around to get parts and such. Ryan says, I meant the unit replacement warranty. Sorry, why doesn't the VRV Life have the unit replacement? Um, they do. 12-year 12-year replacement compressor, it says. So if the compressor fails, I'm not sure if that's the unit replacement warranty, but I don't know, pal. I mean, they all come with different warranties. I'm sure they have the reasons. Um, maybe to compete with other mini splits. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Does Daikin make a gas furnace? Yes, they do. We install them all the time. Arch says even Goodman and Ream Rude offer louver panels and are comparable to the ICP. Yeah. Ken says propane. So yeah, so that might be a reason you might look at a dual fuel system, Ken. In my area, propane can be quite volatile when it comes to the pricing. There have been times it's dropped, and folks will just flip that thing over to emergency heat and burn gas like they would have if they didn't even have a heat pump. But in a lot of cases, they're glad they have the heat pump and they're saving that gas. Buckeye says, does Daikin make Goodman? They do now. So about a decade ago, Daikin bought out Goodman. Ryan says the newest York package units don't have the microchannel coils that people complained about, and York sells a manufacturer labor warranty that some brands don't sometimes. Yes, York does have some pretty cool warranties. I will give them that. Um, I don't want to say something inaccurate, but if you look up their warranties, they do have a few things that only they offer, which is kind of cool from a labor standpoint and length of warranty standpoint. So anyway, we are going to wrap up in just a moment. So if you have any more questions, feel free to drop those in there. But yeah, I'm excited about our announcement we made tonight. I am going to be and I forgot to tell you guys. So if you're still here and you heard my announcement earlier, let me refresh for anybody that joined us. I made the announcement that we're going to be going behind the scenes, if you will, at the largest heating and air facility, manufacturing facility in the nation. It's actually the third largest factory under one roof in the nation, only behind Boeing and Tesla. So that's pretty cool. Little tidbit of trivia for you. But we're going to be going behind the scenes, behind closed doors, and going to the Daikin factory down in Houston next month. And the next little tidbit I'll give you is timeline falls on a Tuesday night. So we're going to be going down, I think, on a Monday. It's either a Sunday or a Monday, and then we'll be there through Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember. But whatever the timeline works out, we are going to be in Houston. So I'm bringing all my gear. We're going to have our show. Like you guys are here on our show, and we're going to have our show in Houston. And I don't know if that will change anything. I don't know if that means maybe we can grab one of those guys to jump on here with us, and you guys can ask them questions um, live right there on the spot. Um, but we are going to be doing our show right down there, just like this. We're going to do our live show right there in Houston. So look forward to that. 3000 says we need a 3.5 ton replacement system. 3.5 ton must be the winner tonight. We've had several of you say that you're having a 3.5 ton system replaced. So that must be our winner tonight. All you guys with 3.5 tons. We may add 600 to 800 square feet to our home next year. Should we get a bigger system like the Daikin 4 ton? 3,000. That is a hard question to ask. I get homeowners will ask me that all the time, and some of the homeowners will even say, "Yeah, we plan to add on next year," and we've had to make the homeowner put in writing that they're not going to come back after me if they change their mind and now their system's oversized. So we'll try to talk them out of it. We'll try to say, let's go ahead and size it for what you have now, and then we'll worry about the addition later. And they'll say, no, I want to go ahead and size it for the addition. I want to go ahead and upsize it. And we'll say, well, you're going to be oversized then until then, and that can bring a whole nother set of issues. And because of that, we need something in writing saying you're not going to come after me because your system's oversized. So I don't make them sign their life away, but just in an email in writing that they understand that they are requesting for it to be sized larger than what that actual area needs. So should we get a bigger system? I think only you can answer that. I'm not sure I can pronounce this name right. I'm going to say Einstein. Maybe that's how you pronounce it. Einstein. Einstein says recommend a long-lasting condenser and coil 5 ton for South Texas heat. Have a 12-year-old Carrier R22 now. I would recommend getting 3 quotes at least and finding a good contractor and going with the brand and system they recommend and will stand behind. That's my answer. Arch says, I've seen some of the York package units on the roofs and they look like good. Yeah, they're not a bad looking system. I mean, that's not our deal here, right? I mean, that does play a role in it, right? If you spend all this money, you want a system that actually looks like you spent the money. Um, and I think one of you guys just pointed out a moment ago, I think York got the biggest dent in their reputation because York was probably the one that went the most all in with the micro channel stuff. You know, there were a few other brands that went all in a little bit too, but I feel like York was the one that went all in the most. And they really, especially with 410A and the high pressures that it brought, unfortunately, it kind of dented their reputation a little bit. So now that that's a thing of the past, maybe that's something folks should consider and consider them more often, especially if they have a good contractor that's recommending them. Arch says maybe you can find out if Daikin package units aren't merely rebadged Goodman units. Maybe, maybe. Ryan says I don't know how much about the Daikin Sky Air FTQ ducted. How does it compare to the fit? It appears to cost more. Yeah, so we do the FTQ ducted units. Um, I don't mess with the Sky Air stuff a lot. In fact, my supplier, I don't even think they stock it. Um, the Sky Air stuff usually falls in more of a commercial type atmosphere usually. So especially if you go to there now, have I ever heard of them being in homes? Yes, but I think they're usually geared and targeting more of a commercial type atmosphere. But we'll do the FDMQ air handlers, which is pretty much the same thing. That pancake air handler, we've done them a bunch of times. And if you pair them with an Aurora unit, they can work really well down to very low temperatures. So how does it compare to the fit? Well, it just depends. I mean, they do two different things. So the fit can be can be paired with a regular air handler and have a backup heat and things like that. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. The FDMQs aren't but so big. You're not going to be able to put them in like you would a 5-ton fit, for example. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. They both serve their own purpose. Um, Again, we're gonna wrap up in just a moment. It looks like we've got a few more questions here. Um, do me a favor. We end our show the same every week, and if you've shared a company before, feel free to share them again. Wherever you're located, if you know a good heating and air company, do me a favor and give them a shout out. Share where they're located, who they are, and what area they service if you would like. And let's do a solid for the companies that are good out there, where they're located, and give them a shout out before we wrap up here. So Buckeye says, when summer ends and getting ready for autumn and winter, is it wise to cover the condenser to cover and wrap up and keep our snow and ice? So if you don't use the unit at all, so if you have a straight AC and you don't use it, I've had customers that will cover the unit in one way, shape, or form. I don't know that it's necessarily going to mean that it lasts longer if it's outside, but um, I have I have one particular customer that he covers it with a fancy looking cover every year and keeps the leaves out of it, and it does look newer. So newer than systems of the same age. So Ken says your videos have been so helpful as I searched it to soon replace my still working well 24-year-old system. Thank you, Ken. Arch says I agree with you that parts availability is important when choosing a heat pump. I I appreciate that. Emery says, what are the Daikin warranties? It depends on which system. Depends on which system you get. Some of them come with a 12-year parts warranty. Some of them come with unit replacement warranties, and some of them come with it just depends on what you get there. Ryan says, ask Daikin if they will release residential heat recovery heat pumps anytime soon. I live with someone who body temperature has a completely body temperature than I do, hence why I have to keep the temperature so high. Um, Bob, what's up? Sorry I missed the session. We'll watch a rerun. Nice. Gary says, enjoyed this evening as always, Josh. I'll be here next Tuesday to hang out with you and the gang again. Good night, Gary. Um, Arch says, I wish I could, but haven't installed yet. And Terped Out says, what's a good mini split in the market right now? I mean, I think Terped Out, I think the general consensus, the big three are, we could probably argue on who the third one is, but the big two are probably Mitsubishi and Daikin. So they both have good products. They both have good infrastructure, meaning parts availability, and contractors that will work on them. And they both have good, good training and support, technical support if there's an issue. And so they're probably the big two, and then there's kind of everybody else. So there's a lot of Chinese brands out there being made by the same company, different names. But I would say if you go Mitsubishi or Daikin, in most cases, you should be pretty happy. In comparison, anyway. So yeah, we're gonna wrap up in just a moment, guys. Looks like we got one or two more questions here, so we'll answer those. But yeah, again, if you have any good heating and air companies, wherever they're located in the country, feel free to drop their name there and where they're located. Give those guys a shout out. Ryan says, I would love to be able to keep my zone of the house in cooling and the other side of the house in heating from the same unit. Sorry about the typos in my question. Yeah, I mean, I I wonder if that is a thing. I think that price point is part of it. I think that it would be great to see more mini splits with heat recovery and that be more of a thing. But I think that most folks are not in your boat, right? I think most folks, if they want one unit in cooling, then they want all the units in cooling. They just got to walk around and get them all in cooling with the remote. Um, but I'm with you. Um, it would be nice if they all had that, right? Turped Out says 40-foot line set mini split possible. Yes, it's very possible. Most mini splits can do well over that. Usually somewhere around, I think most of the Daikin units we install, I think 65 foot is kind of where we need to look at if it's okay, if I need to increase the size, if I need to look at doing a different unit, and so on. Ryan says unlimited residential air. Shout out to Unlimited down in Charlotte. Good enough. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap up now. Thank you for your support. If you haven't subscribed, we're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by next summer or sooner. So that way we can get behind more closed doors. I feel like that's kind of the number. Once we reach that number, we'll be able to approach folks and say, hey, you know, we're a bigger YouTube channel and maybe get behind a few more closed doors with that kind of access. So shoot for 100,000 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We've got some cool stuff coming up, and we'll be back next week, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, live, just like every week. And let's just make it a great week. We'll see you then. Take care.